get started? Does that work for everyone?
Yes.
All right. Good evening. My name is Jeanette Ortiz, Chair of the Anne Arundel County Police Accountability Board. I would like to call the meeting of the board to order. First order of business will be approval of the minutes of the September 25th meeting of the PAB. The audio recording of that meeting will serve as the minutes for the meeting. At the September meeting, the PAB received updates from the law enforcement agencies and updates from our executive director. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for the September meeting of the board? I see Sean's hand. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Great, minutes are approved, and those minutes can be accessed on the Anne Arundel County Police Accountability Board website. All right, next we will go to public comment. The board will accept public comment. Just a few friendly reminders before we get started. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to provide public comment. And a timer will be used to keep time. Once the buzzer sounds, please wrap up your comments. Any remaining time may not be allocated to another person. We ask that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences watching the meeting. The board cannot discuss any specific cases, and it is not the practice of the board to engage in back and forth. We did have a Victoria Rush signed up to provide testimony today. She's not signed in yet. Is there anyone who would like to provide public comment who did not sign up in advance? Okay, I don't see anyone. I'm just going to wait a minute, just in case Miss Rush appears. I don't see anyone. We go through the intros in the minutes very quickly, so I'm just gonna hang tight for a few more seconds. All right, if she pops on afterwards, we can give her time to provide public comment. And last call, is there anyone who did not sign up in advance who would like to provide public comment? Nope. All right, so we will move on to the next item on the agenda. So forgot to write this down, the date. So the next item on the agenda is a regional PAB summit, if you will, that we, Anne Arundel County hosted. And this was held on September 20. Oh my goodness. Can you guys remember, Jen? Or
I believe it was September 20th.
Thank you. On September
October 20th.
October 20th.
October 20th.
Time flies when you're having fun.
I can't remember anything. Yeah, so Friday, October 20th. So essentially, we reached out to PAB chairs and their staff from around the state to just meet with us and talk to us and share sort of our lived experience as being new police accountability boards around the state. And so we kept it to a minimum of just the chairs and the staff, just because, space. restrictions, and also it's the very first meeting, but hopefully in the future we'll be able to expand it to more than just that. And so, as I mentioned, the purpose of that meeting was basically to touch base and discuss different topics, which included trends, what other PABs were finding to be working legislatively, what wasn't working legislatively, potential legislative fixes or changes, feedback from their ACCs, their administrative charging committees, annual reports, and recommendations. Overall, it appeared that, many of the PABs were having a very similar experience, some experiencing a little bit more local and county support than others, but similar trends, recommendations, challenges, and things of that nature. And so we hope to continue these conversations. There were 9 counties represented, but we hope to continue these conversations with those 9 counties and other counties and see what we can do to bring even a larger group together in the future. Because, I found it to be very helpful and insightful. And, you kind of feel like, okay, it's not just us, or we have similar questions or similar concerns or similar recommendations. So I found it to be very helpful. And a big thank you to Jen and Rogers and Moya Panda, who really organized all of that, did all the outreach, and made sure that we were fed and had a space and everything to kind of get together and share our experiences and discuss, the things that we would like to see as PABs in the state. And I'll turn it over to Executive Director for the PAB, Moya Panda, to see if you would like to add anything else regarding that meeting.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to mention that that there were 9 counties, including Baltimore City. So we had Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Montgomery County, Howard County, Frederick County, Hartford County, Baltimore County. I believe that's 9. But I wanted to list them all out so you all can see that it was a major contribution across the state for them to be there in Anne Arundel County. And after the meeting, they all we got personal emails sent saying that they were very thankful that Anne Arundel County took the lead on this and made sure that we wanted them all to connect. So I just got a big kudos to Jeanette and Jen for the idea and the execution of it, because, I'm still getting calls and emails from that meeting, and we're really collegial and we're asking each other when we have questions. Our council, Tom, also gets a chance to talk to people in Prince George's County and otherwise just get information. It's really good to have that connection. I mean, the law is new. We're working through it all together at the same time. So it's good to have that connection. So thanks for Jeanette for having that wonderful idea. And then we were able to execute it and get it done.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was great. And, and one thing I learned, I know that Moya and Jen are so helpful to us, but just hearing how helpful they've been to staff in the other counties was awesome. And just learning, how much of a leader we truly are in Anne Arundel and the things that we're doing and the outreach and the collaboration that we're having with other counties. So it was a really good meeting, and I look forward to future meetings. And, I'd love to have, our entire board, at the very least, our entire board to be able to go. We probably can't accommodate everybody's entire board, but, if we host it in the future. But it was a good starter conversation. So I wanted to share that. Are there any questions or comments?
So, I want to ask, I know it was a nice conversation, but are we in the right space compared to other counties, or is everyone sort of in the same vicinity? Have we done what we needed to do?
I do think so. Counties are a little bit different in how they're staffed and organized. For example, Prince George's was there as well, and they fall within their inspector general, which he oversees police accountability, but also other things. So they have a lot more staffing. But even with, we're like small and mighty, right? But we are doing great things. And even just, yeah, so the answer is yes. I think we are in a very good spot. I did not feel coming out of that meeting like, oh, why aren't we doing X or anything like that? If anything, we're very aligned with those counties that seem to be, a little further ahead. I think we're right up there as being ahead of things. There were a couple of counties that had distinct situations. One that was still under a consent, Baltimore City is under consent decree, so they have a different situation, and they've had civilian review boards, so their staffing is very different and funding, etc. But they have lots and lots of cases. Then you have, some of the smaller counties that don't have quite the staffing or the support. So they're working through those issues. But I think especially as it relates to the counties that are more similarly situated in size and population and things of that nature, I think we're doing great. And so, like I said, it seemed that folks were really aligned with the things that they find to be working well and the challenges and the things that they would like to see different in the future. And some of those things were in our annual report last year and will be in our annual report, which we'll talk about at the end of the meeting this year. But there was a lot of alignment of just really common sense potential changes in the law that could further strengthen the law and its purpose.
Well, what's the location? And also, do you know if it's possible that it could be an informal exchange or a library of the annual reports for the respective counties that attended?
Yeah, so we held it in the county offices in Annapolis, the county building, and then I think we did talk about folks sharing their reports, but certainly we can reach out at the end or at the beginning of the new year to access reports. I know that I believe Jen had looked at, other county reports early on, but yeah, we can look to create something so that the board members have access to all that information from the other counties. I mean, I've looked at several of the reports from the other counties. Our report is great.
Yeah, just
Very thorough. We're very thorough.
As far as where the hot spots are within the state, and where we fall on that demographic.
Yeah, that's a good point. And obviously last year, because the law went into effect July 1 and the report was due by just January 1 or December 31st, there weren't really a lot of trends or anything to report on. And so I think we're all starting to see that now more, to start analyzing, being able to look at some trends. So yeah, that's a really good point to see, how we fare as a county in comparison to other counties, and what are the trends? Are they things that are unique to Anne Arundel or the region, or are there certain things that are statewide? And certainly, hopefully, that information will help to inform legislators as well and policymakers. Any other questions or comments?
I had one question from Cedric right quick. As far as community outreach, I think that's really important, and I know you do as well. Did you get any best practices, anything that stood out that, hey, we should be doing something similar to this county on the community outreach? Because right now, when I talk to people about the board, very few people know exactly what this is, or you have to really, really educate the community about exactly what is the PAB, the ACC, how we are part of the community, how we can assist with, making a difference for the community and bridging the gaps in law enforcement.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Cedric. So I may have forgotten, but there's nothing that stands out to me necessarily that other counties were doing that we aren't doing or looking to continue to do or increase or improve upon. Other, we have our sort of listening tour, if you will. We've talked about different ways to be more engaged in the community. We've been, obtaining information on meetings of organizations and sharing that with membership to see, so that folks can go. We've reached out to various community groups as well to invite them to, present to the board and just let them know that, we're available to come to their meetings, right? Meet them where they are. So we're certainly looking at different ways for us to continue to educate the public. And I know at least a couple of the agencies have hired individuals to do the same thing, but there was nothing, unless I'm missing something, Moya, there was nothing that stuck out to me that other counties are doing that we're not doing. If anything, I feel like we might be doing a little bit more. But of course, I think we all agree that we can continue to do more, and there's still a need to be out there more in the community and educate folks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, Jeanette, this is Barney.
Hey, Barney.
Hi, everybody, as a matter of fact. I had a question for you. I can't recall. When we held our community meetings in the different parts of the Anne Arundel County area, did we get any participation from the PDs in terms of announcing our board meeting or our meeting in the community? If so, perhaps we need to reach out to them so they can put on their website so they could encourage people to come in under. I don't know if we did that or not.
So from our police departments, our agencies? Yeah, so we did share that information. I don't know if we asked them to put it on their websites and their social media. So that's a very good something to note. So we'll certainly note that for future, sort of sharing information sharing. But we did have instances where there was law enforcement from a couple of the agencies at, I think, Crofton, there may have been an officer or two there, and Annapolis. I think at maybe 2 or 3 of the meetings, there were officers. I know I heard a mixed feedback about having them there present and whether folks would feel comfortable, going and having, to kind of give their candid, maybe observations or constructive criticism of the agencies if officers were there. We didn't ask them to attend, but they attended as part of their community outreach as well. But we did not, they were not in uniform. Thank you for pointing that out, Moya. They were not in uniform, but they were there. But we did not ask them specifically to kind of share that on their sort of social media or their different platforms. We did on ours, but that's a good point since, the law enforcement agencies obviously have outreach into their communities as well. So thank you for pointing that out. We'll definitely
Also have one other question, if I can.
Yeah.
With the community meetings or the regional meetings that you had with the other PABs, are there any that are translating the report into language for their community?
That's a good question. That did not come up, but we can definitely look into that.
Yeah, and I was seeking maybe the same question for the PDs that we deal with as to whether they're translating their Facebook pages to the appropriate language community. Just a thought in my head.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I know that we had conversations about having things translated into Spanish, in particular, like Annapolis PD, they have a large Latino population in Annapolis, for example, and they were taking efforts to do that. So I know that we're in the process of translating the complaint form into Spanish, and certainly we can look at having the report as well translated into Spanish. Thank you. Those are very good points. Any other questions or comments? All right. So that that's, to be continued. Hope to have continued engagement with other counties. Definitely want to have our full board, participate in future meetings, and we'll keep you posted, but would like to continue these conversations because I think it's really important to have that collaboration. And then also, if we're all saying the same thing as far as things that improvements in the law or some changes, if a good chunk of the PABs are saying the same thing, that will garner more attention from those who are making the policy decisions and making changes to the law. So we'll keep everyone posted on any future potential meetings. All right. So next on the agenda, we have representatives from the Anne Arundel County NAACP. We've had other groups come and speak to the board regarding their experience with police reform in the county and the state, to hear from them and their membership on the things that they would like to see, any improvements that they've seen, things that they have observed, etc. And so we invited the NAACP to speak with us today. And so we have the president, Reverend Jones, and then we also have Steve Waddy with the NAACP. Steve, I do not have your official title, so when you introduce yourself, please share that with us, and I'll make sure I have it next time. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming this evening to speak to us. You have about 15 minutes to share with us about the NAACP's involvement, as I mentioned, in police reform efforts in the county, around the state. Any improvements you have seen or observed since the passage of the 2021 law, any challenges that still persist, and any recommendations or other observations as it relates to police accountability and police reform. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Let me just introduce my first vice president, Mr. Stephen Waddy. I'm Reverend Dr. Ricky Nelson Jones, president of the NAACP for Anne Arundel County. I'm going to let Mr. Wally share some details, my first vice president, and then I'll come back at the end with some recommendations that I have. Mr. Steve Waddy, you may proceed, brother.
Thank you so much. My name is Stephen Waddy. I'm the first vice president. Thank you, Chair Ortiz, for inviting us. Thank you, Executive Director Panda, for also reaching out, and Jen Rogers for getting the link across. I really appreciate it. It's really nice to meet you all, and virtually. This is clearly the first time NAACP has had the opportunity to speak for you all, but hopefully it won't be the last. I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving as well, and you all are full of the turkey and mac and cheese and everything else. So I did receive the questions in regards to some of the organization's involvement in police reform efforts, improvements we've observed, and challenges that we might be looking to in the future. I just wanted to say, for those who don't know, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People is a 114-year-old civil rights advocacy organization. To know what the essence of the NAACP is to know that the organization was founded in 1909 when the terror campaign of segregationists and white nationalists was destroying Black communal life. Many of the NAACP's founders witnessed extrajudicial killings by white mobs carried out with the assistance of local law enforcement. And since that time, the NAACP has been involved in police reform efforts. More recently, the organization has worked to address police reform through lawsuits, legislation, coalition building, public protests, public education, and meetings with community stakeholders. Just prior to the 2020 uprisings, we were meeting with the county executive and the mayor of Annapolis to craft civilian review boards for both jurisdictions. Following the 2020 uprisings that brought many new faces and a renewed sense of urgency to Democratic elected officials, the NAACP participated in the statewide efforts to craft this legislation, the Maryland Police Accountability Act, that repealed the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights, increased the use of force standard, banned military-grade weapons from local police departments, created a mandate for body-worn cameras across the state for every police department and law enforcement agency, and increased public access to police disciplinary records. The NAACP also collaborated with members of the General Assembly, Black sororities, and other civil rights organizations to address how local news coverage criminalizes Black youth, criminalizes Black mental illness, and criminalizes Black poverty to create conditions ripe for racial profiling. So the NAACP is focused on primarily issues of racial profiling when we're coming to police. We're talking about police reform. I want you all to keep that in mind when we talk about what the HB 670 says about police misconduct. HB 670 defines police misconduct as a pattern of practice within a police or law enforcement agency. It's not just about individual misconduct by individual officers. It includes supervisors, it includes the entire pattern of practice of a law enforcement agency where we might see racial profiling, racial bias come into play on these various issues. And that's something that I hope you all can include in your report, looking at data related to that. It's not just about how the officers may be treating somebody. Improvements your organization has observed since the passage of the 2021 law. The law in and of itself is an improvement. So having the law is an improvement. The law that we had on the books, the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, gave law enforcement agencies increased it increased their Bill of Rights. So it increased their due process. Their due process was greater than other state employees and local employees. So it allowed law enforcement officers to have time to review evidence regarding their misconduct that may have happened prior to any disciplinary actions that might be occurring, any investigation even that might be occurring. And the law the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights was basically the Maryland Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights was the strongest of any law enforcement officers Bill of Rights across the country. And it was also the first passed in 1974. And many of the victim rights advocates had been fighting to repeal the law since its passage, but I think, you know, with every police killing, with every tasing that led to someone being injured, there was a renewed effort to repeal the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, because, as you all know, people could not find that they were receiving justice, and they would come to the NAACP. And as you know, we're a volunteer organization, so a lot of what our resources were dedicated to is stretched across a lot of different issues, and it's very difficult to concentrate our resources on these critical issues. These are some of the most critical issues. So I just want to say that in terms of the passage of the law being a major change. You all being a part of this process is a major change. Your ability to even participate in this, thank you all for coming along, is new. This is something that's new for every state, across the country. This is a new statewide mandate for civilian review of police misconduct. So Maryland is at the forefront of it, and as you all have said from your meeting with the other Police Accountability Board agencies, you all are at the forefront of that. So, you know, it's moving forward in a very positive manner, and we can't expect, you know, massive change like this to happen overnight. Unfortunately, it did take the massive political movement for us to even be at this point, because of so many institutionally entrenched issues that we're seeing. So that was where I wanted to talk about the challenges that still persist. Police intransigence is a problem that continues to persist. As you all saw in your March 2023 PAB meeting, it marked a moment where the information provided by the police departments changed. The police had consulted or law enforcement agencies stated that they consulted with the county's attorney, Ethan Hunt, to identify where they could limit the amount of information that is provided to the PAB. This speaks to the need, one, for independent counsel, and for this body to somehow seek codification of detailed disaggregated data reports, so that you all, we need to know. One of the things that we asked for in the county's crafting of the legislation through the Coalition for Police Accountability, that we with the ACLU, Surge, CAST, and several other, the Caucus of African American Leaders, and we had about 20 other organizations in that coalition. We did ask for stronger requirements related to how law enforcement agencies would respond, because as you all have seen, they are slippery. There's the institutional intransigence that when you're this is a structural issue where it's basically the legislative branch attempting to remove authority from the executive branch over its own investigations. And so the police are holding on to that power. So also the judicial branch is a part of that, because state's attorneys are the ones who would be prosecuting a lot of these misconduct. So is the state's attorney receiving these complaints and deciding not to charge if it's a criminal issue? So you all are dealing with administrative issues, and you've removed the power from the executive branch, and so there's a fight, there's a battle about that, and it's something that, as a quasi-independent agency, you all will need to be strong. And I think Reverend Jones speaks constantly about the need for a strong independent agency in regards to those who are members of the PAB. The other question that we had, so independent investigatory power was the main thing that we asked for. We didn't get. We've asked for it at the state level. The county said that it's not in the state law, so it's not required. It's something that we fought for a bill last year that would authorize counties to have independent investigatory power. It did not pass through the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee. So that's something that we're looking for. Hopefully you all can add that to your report. We also have asked consistently in the county budget for there to be money to do public relations for this board. Cedric, you mentioned how do people know about it? They're going to know about it if there's signs at the bus stop. They'll know about it if there's, a massive digital sign saying, if you have a complaint, come to the PAB. And you all saw that the law enforcement agencies were not trying to provide you all with all of the information regarding complaints. And so that's the reason why that's been an issue that the NAACP and other organizations have found as a reason to have the PAB. And we're thankful that there's a complaint process through the PAB. So we've asked for increased budget. So the the Association on Law Enforcement Review, they recommend that every civilian review board be given at least 1% of the overseeing agency's budget. So the budget for the PAB should be at least 1% of any agency. So you guys have 5 different that you're looking at, that you're overseeing. And I think $3 million was the amount that we asked for last year in last year's budget. we asked for around $3 million, and that's just 1% of the county police department's budget. And so that doesn't include the Annapolis, the sheriff department, the community college, and the Crofton police. Finding out, let me tell you, the great thing that you all had, even in the beginning meetings, was to find out about Crofton's complaint process. We found out that Crofton didn't have a complaint process. You had to go directly into the police department and meet with the police chief to file a complaint. And so having this, they didn't have any women officers. You know, it's like there's those issues that you all brought out were very helpful. And we thank Jansen Evelyn for all the work that he did, you know, prior to Ms. Panda coming on to be able to make sure that happened. So I do want to know whether or not there's been an MOU between the PAB and the agencies. Has that MOU that you all discussed back in March of 2023 been codified? Is there still a debate? You know, that's the questions that I have. And do you all feel like this is a successful way of actually conducting civilian review, civilian control over the law enforcement agencies that you're overseeing? You know, do you see, when you look at the statistics for use of force, the Anne Arundel County Police Department is now calling it what is it? Response to aggression. Response to resistance and aggression is what the Anne Arundel County Police Department is calling it. So, you know, they're putting the onus on those people who are calling for help. They're the ones that are being aggressive. They're resisting arrest. So they've taken out use of force and putting it in parentheses. And the title of the general order is Response to Resistance and Aggression. And
Mr. Waddy, I don't
go
want
ahead.
to
I'm sorry. Yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Get some thoughts here. Did you complete your final thoughts, sir?
No. You go ahead. Go ahead.
I see. Okay. Thank you. How much time do we have left, Madam Presider?
You have a few minutes. Go ahead. You can.
Mr. Waddy was real detailed, real clear about the NAACP's position. And as the president, there's certain things that I want everybody to understand. Keep in mind the purpose of the Police Accountability Act of 2021. Keep in mind this as well. Pretty much in the white community, the philosophy was protect and serve. Outside the white community, the philosophy was arrest, charge, many times maim and kill. And so you got to keep in mind what the purpose of the Police Accountability Act of 2021 was. And one of the things that we really focus on is that there should not be any time when the trial board does not consist of the majority of civilian members or no less than an equal number of civilian members. We need not fool ourselves. When something happens real serious, you be going to the trial board, because police, especially if they don't want to accept responsibility, we go to the trial board. So the administrative charging committee, all that's just going to go through that. That's going through the motion. They go into the trial board, and at the trial board, there's only one civilian member, a judge, and another police officer. So at the end of the day, it seems like the civilian is still getting the short end of the stick here. So one of the things that's incredibly important is that we get legislation in place to make sure this trial board has an equal number of civilian members, but best a majority number of civilian members, so that we do not lose the purpose of the Police Accountability Act in 2021. That is to bring some restraint, put some deterrence in this behavior now in the African American community and other non-white communities, and make sure that they have a serious deterrent here, to know that you can't think you're going to just get away just by going to the trial board. That's one of the things. Another thing is, and I'm going to conclude after two more things, that is, there's certain things that are elementary to the NAACP, and that is not undermining the purpose of the law. For example, this thing about the history of these police officers. There should be no time limit or anything that eliminates consideration of history. When you're talking about people walking around with a gun that can determine if a person lives or dies, their history is always relevant, regardless of the period on which that history derives. That's important. So I know I saw a recommendation from Police Accountability Board about the history. To me, that's elementary to the NAACP. Something else that's elementary to the NAACP. The time period for administrative charges. If there's a criminal process first, and then it goes past the 1 year and a day, that's irrelevant. If they're to be charged, administrative charge, if there's to be administrative charge, there to be administrative charge. There should not be no artificial barriers to that. So the NAACP is always looking at these little obstacles and loopholes around the purpose of the law. We can never lose sight of that. As long as we keep that in our minds, I believe that's going to be very helpful. And finally, the criminal history of people. That cannot be a barrier. There's some people who went to jail for smoking marijuana is illegal in most of the states in this country. It's ridiculous. And so the criminal history of a person should not be a barrier to them getting on the administrative charging committee. So these are fundamental things that the NAACP is looking at, because what's in our mind is the purpose of the law. It is to make sure that these police officers are protecting and serving non-white communities just like they do white communities. And whenever anything undermines that, that's where we have a serious problem with it. That's where we go into the legislators. We gotta pass some laws to put a stop to anything that undermines the purpose of the Police Accountability Act of 2021. That's all I want to share. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Waddy, for your details. I appreciate that.
Thank you both so much for your remarks. Mr. Waddy, Mr. First Vice President of the NAACP, my sincere apologies for not having that in front of me, and President Reverend Jones, we really appreciate you taking the time and speaking to us and sharing your perspective with us and with the public, because it is very important for us to, recall the history of the NAACP and the purpose of the NAACP and the role that it's played in this county, in this state, and around the nation as it relates to race relations, law enforcement issues, and things of that nature. And so it's good for us just kind of like bring it all back and help us refocus and remember those very important facts. I will open the floor to any board members. Any questions for our guests this evening? I see Ms. Jackson's hand up. Kim?
Thank you very much. Thank you for that presentation. I think it's very important to hear from the NAACP, given the history and context of what we're trying to accomplish with the PAB board. And to answer the question, I do think that we're successful. I mean, I think any movement that's going to move toward breaking down community barriers, creating situations where we're all thinking more critically and with a problem-solving mindset is going to put us in a much better position in the future. There's a lot to unpack. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to unpack this overnight, but being in contact with esteemed organizations such as the NAACP is going to be invaluable. I would like to know, I have a question. Before I do that, I just want to give a welcome. I have 6 students here tonight from AACC's Police Academy. I'm very proud of the Police Academy at AACC. I'm very proud of this class. All of these students are working very hard, and they were invited with the carrot of extra credit, but invited nonetheless, and they're here tonight. And I'm very glad to hear that they're hearing from the NAACP. I'm very glad that they're meeting the people on this panel. I hope that this is a situation where they become more involved in this process and more involved with breaking down barriers between the community and the police. And I know that all of these students are going to become, or I should say recruits, are going to become wonderful police officers. And being here tonight is part of that. So I wanted to commend all of you who are here and really make me very proud. And I'm very proud to have you all here. Back to the NAACP, I would like to ask the question in terms of practically speaking, we don't have the opportunity to meet on our own. All of our meetings are public. All of our meetings are 100% transparent. That is not a reality in which the organizations which we are trying to bring together have to live under. So we have to get a lot done in a little bit of time. I'm very curious to know, one, are there ways that the NAACP could support PAB in a way that we can get good information, get good feedback, find a way to maximize the I guess, currency that we have? Also find ways to create relationship building exercises and opportunities. And finally, what are some ways that we can most practically work with you from the PAB side to make sure that we are making use? What we don't want to do is for people to get excited or feel positive and then decide, you know what, this is too much work. This is too difficult to communicate. We don't know what to do. What do I do? The more information we can get to close those gaps, the better. So I'd love to hear back from you on things that we can do together to make that happen.
Mr. Watt, if you got something to say before I speak, you can go, sir.
Well, thank you. I did want to say that we have a coalition of organizations that we work with across the state. You know, the ACLU is leading that coalition, and that coalition, which you all may hear from in your meeting with the PAB chairs, we hear as well from the PAB watchers. So it's a group of activists and organizers and attorneys. And so, you know, if they guide a lot of what it is that we know about the PABs and how to understand to move forward with civilian review boards. So if we could collaborate on that, it'd be great. We do have certain members that do participate in those meetings at times in order to learn a little bit more about what's happening in Montgomery County with the Silver Spring Justice Coalition, or Baltimore County with their NAACP. The chair of the Baltimore City Police Accountability Board is the vice president of the state NAACP. So, you know, we're involved in a lot of different ways. Go ahead, Reverend Jones.
Yes. I'm asking everybody to remember this and keep this in mind. At least in the Black community, whenever things go wrong, it's well known that Black folk will call on Jesus first and the NAACP second. So we're intimately familiar with what's going on in the community. I just met with the chief of police today. I've been having constant meetings with the chief of police. And of course, we know since the law came into existence, we've had less of a problem with police officers, but we are having intimate conversations about what's going on. Chief Jackson's summer program, everything designed to bring the community and the law enforcement together. One of the things that will help you learn from NAACP is to be part of our meetings, be members. Everybody should be a member of NAACP. It was an interracial group that founded NAACP, and there are Caucasians who call us about being discriminated against as well. And so everybody should be a member. If you want to be benefited from the knowledge the NAACP provides, you got to be a part of it. Or there's so much going on in our community, and you can be 100% certain that the NAACP is on top of it. And I'm gonna give you one good example with my communication with one of the chief of police when a mother called and was just really distraught about some serious violence that happened to her son at the hands of police officers. And it was my communication with the chief of police, because we've had a good relationship, that enabled me to help the chief understand it's important when people's child has been seriously injured that somebody talk to the lady. You know, we too quick to run to our corners and keep everything a secret. I said, go and talk to the lady. If it was your child, you want to know something. And the chief agreed with that wisdom and sent one of our officers there. And the woman called me, and she was almost at peace. But when she called me initially, she was frantic about the matter, as any parent would be. And so it's this type of relationship with the chief of police that we have at the NAACP, that the Police Accountability Board can benefit from that knowledge and understand better how you can interact with law enforcement and have a better relationship with the NAACP, so we can all learn and grow together. This is not no big secret. The NAACP has a lot of information, but we're not trying to hold it and keep it from the Police Accountability Board, because we believe the Police Accountability Board is an excellent thing that has come into existence through the Police Accountability Act of 2021. So I encourage everybody to join the NAACP, be at the monthly meetings. You will be enlightened like never before, because some things I hear, I'm stunned. And so you will really learn, and it'll help you do your job better. That's all. Thank you.
No, yeah, we do have monthly meetings as well. Every second Saturday, or third Saturday, sorry. And they're virtual as well as in person at the Annapolis Library, Mike Bush Library. Is that answering your question, or? Well,
let's maybe have the opportunity to talk when we have a little bit of time to think about it. I everything you said, I know the history of the NAACP. I know all the good work that you do. I'm really looking at like very practical steps to close the gaps where we can, and to make use of this opportunity, because if we don't make use of the opportunity in the best possible way, it's one, not going to reach its full promise. And secondly, it then becomes vulnerable to, things that we just don't want it to be vulnerable to. We took a long time to get to the point of being able to have a civil conversation about these issues and have this conversation in the light of day. We definitely want to be a part of a legacy that moves that forward. And so I'm really looking for real practical things that will really speak to the goal, not to undermine or to take focus off the NAACP ever, but also, this is a new venture and it needs a lot of support to reach its full potential. So I was just curious, but we can revisit that.
Membership, that's the key, membership.
Okay.
Thank you. And yeah, we'll definitely continue these conversations offline because, I think we're all very committed to collaborating with the NAACP and other community organizations on this issue of police accountability and police reform. Are there any other questions from board members? All right, well, I thank you again.
Thank you.
Reverend Jones and Mr. Waddy for coming and speaking to us. We really appreciate your insight and your time this evening. We definitely look forward to continued conversation and collaboration and looking at ways that, we can all kind of work together to implement the law faithfully, and also looking at ways to improve the law. I think that, Mr. Waddy, you asked whether you think, whether we think this is successful. I can speak for myself in saying, this is a great step forward, right? And I think, we're being successful, but is it the best that it could be? I think we all can agree that there are certain improvements that can occur, and over the years, over time, hopefully not too long time, but as we're able to show and analyze data and trends and advocate to policymakers and legislators, things that we feel should be improved upon, hopefully the law will be even stronger in the future. So we certainly look forward to collaborating with you and members of the coalition that you mentioned earlier in ways that we can strengthen the law so that it is, the best that it could possibly be. But, it's new and we're all working through it. And I think that continued conversation, transparency, and openness are really important in moving forward in a positive and successful manner. So thank you both again. We look forward to seeing you again soon. You are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, or you are free to
Thank
exit
you all.
the meeting.
I'll be heading out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
And welcome to Professor Jackson's students. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it. And hopefully you've learned, some interesting information this evening, whether from our guest speakers or, the discussion that we're having here as a board. So welcome and thank you for joining us. We do really appreciate it. And we think that it's really important for you to be able to hear, the work that we're doing as a board. All right. So moving on next, we have updates from our executive director, Moya Panda. So I will turn over the mic to her. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening again. Mr. Waddy mentioned that the organization NACOL, which stands for the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, when he was talking about the 1% budget. So I had the opportunity of going to that NACOL conference in Chicago. I was there for about 4 or 5 days from November 12th to November 16th. And we were able to, it's a national organization. They had over 600 attendees that from different states and different cities across the US talking about how police accountability is working in their jurisdictions. We even had impacted families that were there to present. If I'm sure you all know Oscar Grant, who was killed by BART police. His family, aunt and uncle were there. They had other families from the Pacific Northwest who had a mother was there talking about her child who had mental illness, who was shot by the police and killed. You know, things like, so it was great to have not the police, the chiefs of police that were there talking about from the police perspective. They had the community organizers, and then they had the impacted families. And it was just great to see all of them come together and talk to, you know, the attendees about how it's working. We also got to hear how it wasn't working in some of the other states. For example, Tennessee, in Nashville, where they're, and in Florida, where they're just ripping away and stripping away accountability and transparency. So Maryland has made the right step, and you know, I'm thankful that Maryland's on the right track. Obviously, as Ms. Ortiz said, you know, we do have a long way to go as well to make sure we're successful, but thankfully, we're not as bad as some of the other states that they're, you know, they were presenting on. So I do think this might be a conference that I may need to attend yearly. It was just such great information that I received from being there. You left there hopeful and actually fired up to, you know, have more change in your community. So I just thought it was a great conference. Again, it's the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. So I just wanted to give a quick update. Chicago was there, they presented, and they have a $15 million budget. They have like 4 different agencies, 600 employees. They do have independent oversight as well. So, you know, it's just great to see the different cities and how they do it. And I think Maryland can probably learn a lot from those organizations. For example, in Chicago, they were able to, especially when it comes to sex assault cases involving police officers, instead of re-traumatizing the victims over and over again, they signed an MOU with their independent investigatory agencies, with the state's attorney's office and the IA. They interview the victim, you know, once with all the agencies there. And I just thought that was such a great way to, you know, not re-traumatize the victims, but by still trying to get to the meat of it. So, you know, it was just great to learn different tactics that the other cities are using. So, again, you know, I'm hopeful to go again next year and get even more information. For PAB members, just a reminder, we are at the end of the year. So, you know, we do have some requirements, ride-alongs, implicit bias training, etc. Please make sure those are completed before the end of the year. And if you have already completed it, just send us, Jen and I, an email just to remind us again. I think we have everybody, but I think 2 people for the ride-alongs. And for the implicit bias training, I think 2 people have already completed it. So we have 7 more to go. So just make sure, I know that, and with the holidays and everything and the end of the year, if you can get that done sooner rather than later, you have to worry about it, you know, towards the end of the year. As far as ACC updates, so far, the ACC has heard a total of 33 cases. They've closed 33 cases. In those 33 cases, they had 78 charges in those cases. Right now, they do have 2 cases that are pending, and with those 2 cases, there's 10 pending charges. And I would like to mention, even though you may see one case could have 4 officers and 10 charges. So you know, they've really been busy doing a lot of good work, and they've been really working well together as a group. This breakdown will be part of hopefully our annual report, which is coming up soon. So it's going to break down by how many cases. For example, the Anne Arundel County Police Department, they've submitted 18 cases. Annapolis Police Department, they've submitted 10 cases. The Sheriff's Office, 9 cases. As of right now, we still have no complaints from Crofton Police and the community college. Obviously, next month in December, the law enforcement agencies will present their report, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that, you know, the ACC they've been meeting pretty much every Monday to hear 2 to 3 cases or so per the Mondays. And Sarah, I see her nodding her head because she's been working. But yeah, but that's the update from the ACC. And then we do have a vacancy. I was hoping I would get the NAACP. They have fallen off, but I wanted to let them know, which I sent them by email as well. But we are down one ACC member. So any of the attendees who are listening as well, if you would like to apply for the ACC, please do so. You can go on the Office of Police Accountability's website for Anne Arundel County, and you will be able to see the information there. So just a heads up, we are down one ACC member. If you know of anybody who's in Anne Arundel County that's interested in being a member of the ACC, please let Jen and I know, and we'll get their applications in and review that. So far, we're working well with the 4 that we have now, but obviously it's great to have, the full number that we need. And that completes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. That was incredibly helpful. Thank you. And yes, thank you, Sarah, since Sarah is the my designee on the ACC, and I know you've been super busy, so I owe you big time. All right, any questions from Moya, Barney?
Yeah, Moya, I had a question. Is the ACC too small given the caseload? Do we change in legislation?
As of right now, it's been working well with the 4 or 5 members that we've had. As you know, statewide, it is only 5 members. I do think in other jurisdictions, for example, in Baltimore City, they closed, I think, 600 cases since July, and they only had 5 members, and they were able to go through it. So I think as of right now, it's working. I'm not opposed to saying maybe in the future we might need 7 or 9 or what have you. But for right now, if Prince George's County and Baltimore City can get through with their 5 members, I think it's working for now.
Thank you. Kenny?
2 questions. Of those cases that had been before the ACC, the charging committee, have any of them gone to trial? Any cases gone to trial?
I was going to interrupt you. You had another question?
And also, I know that as we had the staggered classes, as we were formulated, and some may be rotating off, would those persons be able to go over to the ACC? Would that be a separate application? And I believe legislation said that you can do concurrent terms, or would they have to apply to stay on?
Okay, so for the first question, out of the 33 cases that the ACC has closed, only 1 officer has requested a trial board. So we're in the process of getting the administrative law judge, the community member, and the officer of equal rank to get that trial board set up. So as of right now, only 1 out of the 33 has requested a trial board. With respect to the staggered terms, if a PAB member would like to be reappointed or what have you, obviously you can have a conversation with Jeanette, Jen, and myself. If any PAB member would like to leave the PAB and go on to the ACC, let us know. Obviously we have your application. You'll probably still need to do an interview, but you would not have to reapply. But obviously we have to advertise to the broader community and have, so it's not a shoo-in that you'll get into the ACC, but you will not have to reapply again. But we would definitely need to do an interview. And also we need to explain to you the requirements of the ACC and the workload and what is expected. So it's going to be very different from the, your role on the PAB. You're going to be reviewing investigatory files, reviewing body cam footage, reviewing witness interviews. You see Sarah's head.
Yeah.
So it's
Don't hurt yourself.
Yes, it's going to be a time commitment. And I say this, it's important work, and you have to take the time to get it right. And Sarah, as she's shaking her head, she's taking the time to get it right. And so we want members who have the time to commit to getting it right.
Thank you so much for that information. I see Kim Sanda.
I'm sorry, I was taking notes. Thank you for that report. That was a very comprehensive report, and I'm very glad to hear that the annual meeting that you went to went so well. It sounds like a real resource for us, and I look forward to hopefully that more of the board members can maybe go and get some of those resources too, and more, just more subject matter expertise on this. So it's wonderful that you had such a good experience, and you seem to be vibrating with a lot of good ideas. So it'll be great to see those manifest in the future. When you mentioned the different cases, and you may not know this off the top of your head, but you did mention in your report that many of the reports have been forwarded to us from the actual police departments in terms of the generation of the concerns. Do you have any idea like what percentage of those are actually from the departments rather than directly from citizens?
Yeah, so there's a breakdown. For example, in Anne Arundel County Police Department, 11 of their cases were from the community, and 5 of them were internal cases. For
Okay.
for the Annapolis Police Department, there were 5 cases from the community and then 5 internal cases. From the sheriff's office, all 9 of their cases were external. They had no internal complaints that were sent to us.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for that information. Sarah?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you if you're thinking about joining the ACC. I'm not going, so hopefully I don't call. It's not it's work. It's hard work, but it's good work. It's good, productive work, and we are making a difference. We are asking tough questions. So if you're looking for a place to make an impact, it is work. It's a caseload. But it is meaningful work. So if you're looking for a place to make a difference when you're going to make a big impact on a project, this is the spot for you. You will come away feeling like you have done something big. I promise you that. Now there's a time commitment. But having said that, you definitely feel like you have made a difference at the end of the week. One week rolls into the next, but you feel like you have done something bigger than yourself, and you're sort of changing the process one step at a time. I was coughing through the NAACP when he said, "Are you changing things?" We are actually changing things. I can see the changes happening before my very eyes. I don't think it's enough. There's a ton of change to happen, but I can see the changes happening. So if you want to make an impact, and you're thinking that I can make an impact, this is the spot to make an impact. There's time commitment. I'm not going to kid you on that. But this is the spot that you will feel something at the end.
Thank you so much. I know that Sarah's put in so many hours in her work with the PAB and her being my designee on the ACC. So we are very grateful for your time and commitment and your insight, because I know it's been very invaluable to the ACC having you there. So thank you. I see Kenny's hand again.
I'm sorry, not trying to monopolize the time. But had we considered looking at getting funds through the LDC and the grant money to help offset maybe monies that we might need for the PAB and the ACC? I know that there's grants that many of the county government agencies are utilizing to fund activities, and if we put in a grant there, I'm sure that we will be able to be successful in gaining some type of additional funding if it's not allocated in the county budget. Secondly, I know we had talked about it before, but wasn't sure if the answer ever was told about who's policing or who gives oversight to the Maryland State Police, the Maryland Transit Authority, since they don't fall under a county. Is there somebody who's reviewing their complaints and where we could get access to that information? And then the other thing I was going to say is that the NAACP, they did give a good brief and overview of what they are doing. It's interesting, though, that many times we come from our own context. And when we talk about meeting the needs of our communities and the people within our county, many times it was just Black and white. Now it's Black, white, and Latino, but we do have a lot of Asian Americans, immigrants, and folks from Israel and various other countries that are experiencing the same fears or misunderstandings and need advocacy as well for them. And I hope that as we continue on in our efforts, that we won't just be vested in our own community, but see us as the community as a whole. And then maybe we could even move forward a little bit better. I'm not going to say anything else, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. For the first question about budget, right now we are fully funded. But I'm obviously, if the time comes where we need additional funds, I have no problem, applying for a grant to get additional monies. But for right now, we're fully funded through the CAO's budget. So again, if there's any time where we need to get additional monies, I have no problem requesting, one, additional money from the CAO's office, and two, any grants that are available to us. I think you had a question about the oversight for the state police. There is a statewide ACC. They meet, I believe, once a month, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not sure. It could be bi-monthly, but they meet as well, and they review any allegations of police misconduct involving the state police. And they, I think they meet in Sykesville or they meet via Zoom. I'm not sure, but I do know that they do have a statewide ACC body that reviews those allegations of misconduct. And then with the reference to your last commentary about Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, one of the feedback that we did receive was that our complaint form was not in Spanish. And so we're in the process of getting that complaint form translated into Spanish. And we're looking at getting our annual report as well translated into Spanish. So we are receiving the feedback, and we're hoping that, we're listening to the community and getting meeting them where they are and getting the information out to them in their native language.
Thank you. I see Danny's hand up.
Hi there. Just a couple of things, and I will kind of ride on what Kenny said there. I do want to, put out there that there has been a lot of negative press about the NAACP's treatment towards LGBTQ individuals, homosexual individuals. So I have to say personally, I was a little bit, concerned about this person speaking tonight as well. So I do think we need to be more diverse in the way we're thinking about who this board serves. I also wanted to throw out there, I didn't know too, since marijuana legalization has happened, if we were able to get any statistics on demographics of people arrested. I mean, I know historically there has been a huge bias towards the arrest and incarceration of Black individuals, like 4-to-1. So I think that's something we could look at and see. I'm just thinking if we track some of these things that are happening while we're on this board, even if we didn't implement it, it could show us some improvements over time, or things we want to watch and monitor. And then also, I just wanted to say too, the 311, the Anne Arundel County report app. I don't know if other people have it. A lot of people use it for when their trash isn't picked up. But I was also wondering if we could get a link to making a complaint on that app. You can complain about a lot of things. You can put a lot of things in there, but we don't seem to have any kind of connection between that and an actual complaint or concern for our PAB. Thanks.
Thanks, Danny, and thank you for your comments. I think we've all are definitely committed to hearing from different organizations and groups within the community, and we'll definitely continue to reach out to individuals representing, whether it's Latino community, LGBTQ community, other community organizations that are active, whether in police reform, police accountability, or who are disproportionately impacted by law enforcement. So we will continue to work towards that, and certainly want to work with each of you to be able to reach out to individuals or organizations that we would like to hear from. And sometimes, unfortunately, folks are not available, but we'll continue to do outreach and hear from all of those that we represent in the community. So point well taken. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Moya?
I just want to respond to Daniel about that. We can reach out to the agencies about that statistics, see if they're tracking that as well. And then I'll reach out to Jen and talk about or whoever I need to talk to about the 311 and getting that linked. That seems like a good idea. So we'll follow up and get back to you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, new business, and it's our annual report. Everyone should have received a copy of the draft annual report. There are a couple of blank spaces because I still need to work on my welcome letter. But overall, it's in I think a pretty solid place. Don't worry about the format. Jen's going to work her magic and make it look like amazing with all the grids and graphs and, to kind of make the data and the information stand out. So just for the public information, so it'll be the same format as last year's report. Will provide a history and background of, police accountability, how we arrived to where we are today. There's membership information. There's information about staffing and structure of the Police Accountability Board and office. There is an overview with a brief summary of all the meetings that we've had. There's information on the ACC. There's information on the work of the trial board. There's information included on training and professional development for members. There's information on community outreach. There's information on the complaint process. We provide a section with data and also definitions as they are defined in the law, as that may be, some things might be more intuitive to others than to others. And so we want to make sure that everyone's working from the same definitions that are defined in law. We have recommendations. And so, last year we made, I forget, several recommendations, and not sure that any of them were fully taken up by any policymakers. And so we want to include those and then also highlight new recommendations as we put together a nice number of recommendations in a short time period last year. But obviously, as we continue to do the work, as the ACC continues to do the work, and as we start hearing from other PABs, et cetera, and just our own experience, there are things that we feel whether it's the legislature, mostly the legislature and the law need to do, we feel they need to do to improve upon the law and make it more workable. So I would ask for folks to just take a quick, well, not so quick, but a good look at the draft report and send any feedback to me, Moya, and Jen, so that we can look at it and incorporate what we need to incorporate into the report so that we can send another draft out. The report is due by the end of the year. And so what we will do is then take it up at the December meeting to vote on it and adopt. And if we need to make any changes, we would do it at that time as well. So that's an overview of the annual report. And I think last year, and we'll take this up when we vote next month, but we opted to share with the committees of the General Assembly who actually have jurisdiction and oversight over police accountability. And I did talk to legislators, but I think, again, it was new, so they weren't really looking at doing anything. However, given the feedback that we've received from other PABs, if they're hearing from more PABs about the same issues and the same recommendations, hopefully they'll take them up. But those are things we can certainly talk about in December and moving forward if there's a place to do outreach to legislators. So are there any questions on the annual report?
Madam Chair, you said our deadline is when to review and get back to you?
Next week, I'll send you a date next
Okay.
week, maybe by like next Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll send everyone an email with a link
Okay.
to the report, because that'll give us time to make any changes or
Mhm.
like circle back with you if we have questions, and then also have it, because our meeting in December is early. It's
The 18th.
the 18th because of the Christmas holiday falling on a Monday. So we have a week less than we would normally have, but we want to make sure we hear from everyone and, you know, are able to circle back. But yep, I will send an email out. Any other questions?
Thank you. That
Hey.
sounds very comprehensive. Thank you for your hard work, Moya and Jen. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to thank you guys too. I've gone through the report and I've seen some great things in there. The recommendations that we've seen and some of the things we want to change locally as well as statewide. So you've done an amazing job, I think.
Thanks, Barney. Also, and just for the public's knowledge, so the recommendations are things that have come up over the year, right? That we've discussed as a board. And so, you know, between Jen, Moya, and I, we had our running list of things that have come up, things we've heard from the ACC as well. And so that's where those recommendations, in addition to the recommendations we continue to recommend from last year's report. So, all right. Any other questions? All right. I don't see anyone's hand. Okay, so the next meeting of the PAB will be held virtually on Monday, December 18 at 6:30 p.m. As we discussed, we will be reviewing and voting on our annual report. We will also be hearing from the county's law enforcement agencies. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
I was gonna say, y'all want to stay?
Second.
Nothing else, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, well, thank you so much. Keep an eye out for emails, and see everyone next month. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Meeting's
Bye.
adjourned.